So I do want to jump to our last poll question really quickly for folks watching. So in which functional area do you feel the greatest innovation is yet to come in the AAV space? We've got analytical development, cell line development, downstream purification, formulation, supply chain and logistics, and F is other. And as I said before, please feel free if you feel like elaborating and being loquacious on what other might be to you, feel free to include it in the Q&A section. But I'd love to sort of advance the question here in terms of what capabilities we're seeing improving in terms of we're seeing more resins coming on the market. We're seeing companies sort of merging to build their capabilities in certain areas. How well equipped would you guys say, and Justin, we can start with you here. I know this is one of your probably your bread and butter, right? How well equipped are we in the outsourcing world from a capability and technology standpoint in meeting regulators' quality expectations? And where do you think we need to be seeing more maturity or efforts being made to further move the bar?
I'd say, yeah, the CMO marketplace has matured greatly in the last several years here, with a lot more players coming into there. Particularly, 8 years ago, you had almost no no CDMO that was able to offer commercial capacity for an AAV product. And today, you have several facilities that are built and are producing, commercial products for the space. So that's a great advance in capability and marketplace there. So I think a lot more that's available today than was there. I'd say that the space is still, I think, as you look at it and navigating as a sponsor, there's a few things you have to consider when you look at this. There's still a lot of heterogeneity in the programs that are out there, and the capability is heterogeneous between the CMOs you go with, right? They may have, they may be more familiar with one expression system or the other, and they may have more technology tailored to one or the other. So you really have to understand what your needs are and find the right fit from a technology standpoint. I think the other thing is from a relationship standpoint, depending on who you're looking for in the space, you have to find the right fit for the organization you're with. There are large organizations that are probably more volume driven, versus if you're after a rare disease, you're a smaller company trying to find one that can meet your program needs and are able to handle what the particulars of what you're going for are. This is not a commoditized industry yet. Everything is still a little bit, it's custom to the expression you're using, the programs you're advancing. And so I think those are the challenges you have to navigate within the space. But I'd say it's there's a lot more options today. And if you go through that, there's the pick list is a lot longer than it once was. And maybe it's a more difficult choice today than there was. But that's sort of my reflection.
Yeah, no, I'd like to further that a little bit, and you mentioned sort of looking internally and thinking about what's important to you, right, and to your product and your projects, right, your processes. I'm really curious if you have a go-to, as we're thinking about quality, right, especially, and I think there can be some trade-offs sometimes in terms of quality, scale, yield, et cetera, what we're looking for in today's world. How do you are there any go-to considerations about a CDMO partnership as it relates to quality? Is there a make or break for you in terms of picking a partner that you think what they have to offer is really going to do wonders for what you ultimately need?
I mean, there's probably two things. It's ultimately, does their facility capability match with what our product needs to make, right? Do they have the equipment? Do they have do we have the same experience? We've invested heavily in process development here, and we understand our processes very well. And so we've characterized them in a number of systems. So we need to make sure that they have similar capability there. And I think the other piece goes into that organization's quality mindset. Ultimately, it comes down to how high on their list is quality as an organization. I think that assuming the equipment matches, that's a real differentiator between the partners you work with of how they view and how they operate their facilities. If you do that very differently, it's not going to be a successful relationship.
You're not going to jive. Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense. Andrew, I know you've had experience as well with this. You've dealt with tech transfer, et cetera, and in the process of working with CDMOs. I'm curious, how would you address what Justin has talked about? Are there ways that you're looking at or see areas of growth in the outsourcing realm that you feel really we could stand to see some more innovation, or are you seeing things moving along really well?
Well, firstly, I agree with what Justin said about the quality. So first of all, you need to make sure they have the equipment, and then you need to make sure, more importantly, that they operate it according to GMP principles, QC, QA.
Yeah.
I would say for me, I've had the most difficulty working with CMOs in the analytical space. So it's one process, but it's, I don't know, 20, 30 different assays you have to establish and qualify. So it's almost 20 times more. If you call an assay a process, it's almost 20 times more processes that you have to go through. So we've seen delays in our products due to the time it's taken the collaborators to get the assays developed and qualified, and then run the samples. So I think that's the thing that you might overlook when you pick a CMO. But you really want to have a game plan for your analytics. So am I going to do all the analytics at the collaborator? Are they capable? Are they staffed to handle all the assays I'm going to give them? If we have to outsource, do we want to outsource as a bundle, or are we going to outsource to a series of different? These are all things you need to think about and make sure you have everything planned at the start.
Yeah.
And I think one small thing I think CMOs could improve on is and this is not really science related, but I find they have very high staff turnover. So for me, a differentiator in a CMO would be less staff turnover, so you can maintain consistent relationships with the people. Because the most difficult part of tech transfer is all about relationships. So once you have an established relationship, it can be disruptive if you then have to change.
Yeah, no, that's an absolute. I've heard that. I've heard the analytical development piece has also been a big consideration for us as a space. And I think that's one of the areas where throughout the history of mankind, folks have argued that analytics in the outsourcing realm is one area that can always stand to use some more innovation, right? And an ability to, capability, I think, in general. Right. So those are really good points. I just want to review really quickly the results of the poll question where people see the greatest innovations to come. It looks like cell line development has come in at first place with 48%, almost 50% of the vote, followed by about 27% with analytical development. So it looks like we've got our two top contenders. Third place, it looks like, is downstream purification with only 12%. So any surprises there to you guys as you've worked in the outsourcing realm or in the world here? We've talked a little bit about all of these things. Any surprises? Go ahead, Justin.
I reflect these are, I mean, we've stressed on a few of these already through the discussion here, cell line development and really helping you to produce the product at scale and at the highest quality possible. Analytical development, understanding your process, and then purification is being able to clean up what you need to. One note on here, formulation being so low ranking. I mean, a number of the products we have are stored at cryogenic temperatures. So that hasn't hindered a number of the rare diseases going forward. But I do wonder, as you start to approach, if you want to get the larger market indications, having something that's stable at refrigerated temperatures or things like that for longer periods of time could be a real innovation that unlocks getting these to some of those indications.
Yeah, I would agree with that with formulation. I would have ranked formulation, well, I would have surprised formulation wasn't a little higher for the reason that Justin said. So, I mean, our formulation group at Regeneron, they just published an article on lyophilization for cold storage. So I think innovations such as that could help for broader populations.
And I think too, there's the access piece, right? Being able to get these products to a broader population around the world, right? It's not just the wealthy nations. So we have just a couple of more minutes, but I always love to end a discussion with the experts that I have on the line here with a bit of a personal question, best practices oriented. If you had to go back to yourself a couple of years ago, say 3 years ago, and give yourself some advice as it relates to your understanding of AAV quality development to deliver higher quality products, what would you tell yourself? And why would you tell yourself that? This is actually a very hard question. People have turned it on me and I've never known how to answer it. So if you guys are able to answer it, you're my heroes. And Andrew, how about we start with you and then Justin?
Oh, okay. Well, it's funny because I know exactly what I would tell myself.
Beautiful.
In 2020.
Tell me, tell us.
I would say, you got to understand the plasmids. Like, don't just take the plasmids from the research groups, scale them up and just be like, they'll be great. No, you have to read all the papers on plasmids. You have to know how plasmids are made. You have to think about what ITR you're using. You have to think about, is there anything weird about the promoter? Does it have like hairpin sequences or anything? Is it going to give you a lot of truncated? You got to think about your rep cap. Like, is this the best rep cap to use? You've got to think about the antibiotic resistance gene. Like, don't skim. Don't just grab the nearest plasmids and go like I did. Like, put some proper thought into it.
That is a beautiful takeaway. And the plasmid is one of the most unsung heroes of this entire gene therapy field. So thank you for giving it some bandwidth, because I agree. I think that there's a lot there, a lot of innovation and consideration there. Justin, how about you? What would you tell yourself?
I would second Andrew's thought, is making sure you don't overlook plasmids as you go through this, and understanding the implications of decisions you're making there. The other part I would think about, we've harped on comparability a bit here, but I think really being thoughtful is how you're managing your innovation and your comparability assessments as you go through this, and being very thoughtful about that approach. I think what analytical technologies you have, how do you set yourself up for these, and what are your expectations around that? I think we've navigated a number of these as we've innovated, and I think we've learned with each one of them. So I wish I had that knowledge of 3 years ago that I do today. I think one in particular to think about is you try to leverage, animal models for things, the variability and things that those bring. There's a promise of what they can bring you, some other understanding, but there's also a lot of variability that may come with that model use.
Absolutely. No, I think that is a really good point as well, and one that, we're learning. Change is going to happen, right? You just have to be well prepared for it. So we are at the top of the hour, so we're going to wrap up. But Andrew and Justin, thank you so much for giving us your time, your insights, your experiences. This has been really wonderful. I hope that you enjoyed the discussion as much as I did. For those of you who have stuck with us for the hour, thank you so much as well for your attention, for your thoughtful questions. We really appreciate it. And thanks again to Cytiva for sponsoring this discussion and for bringing us all together. We look forward to hopefully seeing you all again at a future live event. Thank you all. Have a great day.